Hey, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Marketing Stack podcast, to be more specific. And in this podcast, well, we talk about marketing, we talk about tools, we talk about online apps, we talk about all things digital and systems and processes and things you need in your marketing so that you can actually generate leads and, get your business growing. And I was having an interesting conversation with a friend of mine, Dennis, who was actually on the podcast a couple months ago. And Dennis and I were riffing on about this concept earlier today about how everybody is, or there's a lot of people today who are just in for the selfish reasons of getting stuff, for doing something for you, for either for payment or for some sort of recognition or for some sort of something. And one of the things that's really interesting about the way that the world is and the way that people function today is everybody's on this instant coffee analogy, everybody's trying to get things immediately, right? It's like, do the thing today so that I can get this result, so that I can get paid. And we had this interesting concept, or this interesting discussion, Dennis and I, where we I asked him this question of, well, how does he overcome that? How has he managed to change his perception on that? Because for me, my backstory comes from, my parents were very sort of systematic in receiving money for in exchange for a thing. And that was the whole principle of sales is you give value, or you give a particular product, or you give something physical to somebody, and you receive money in exchange for that. Or it's this favor for favor, right? I'll do for you if you do for me. And in this creator economy, or in this gig economy, or in this online economy that we are currently functioning in, and we have been functioning in for a while now, it's this thing of you give value first, and then only later on do you reap rewards. Gary Vaynerchuk, Tim Ballio, a lot of the podcasters, a lot of the YouTubers have operated on this principle of having a side hustle, or having something going on the side where they can sustain themselves. They've been able to make money, and then being able to do free content, being able to give people value, be able to sit on people's podcasts for hours on end, talking about stuff and riffing off of ideas, and just being able to give people valuable information and tips and tricks. Clubhouse is a prime example of that, right? Where people are sitting for hours and hours on Clubhouse talking and having conversations. And going back to my backstory, like growing up in an environment where everything was paid for, everything was via payment, right? We always received things if we didn't do something, we were punished for it. Did you do your homework? Yes or no? If you didn't, you go to the principal's office. Um, my parents were very big on, like, get all your homework and get all your goodies done before you can actually have a chill day on a Saturday, or before you can actually, you know, do something else, or we could go for ice cream, or whatever the case may be. And I think a lot of people have operated in that way all along. Whereas, with this whole change that's happened, I myself have had to rethink how I do business, or how I am operating. And starting this podcast and actually getting guests on, and having these conversations, or being open about how things have changed and how marketing operates today. Obviously, with the Facebook ads and Google ads, and the way marketing works is there is this exchange. There's this, hey, download my free ebook, or download my free thing, or come to my webinar, or do do something so that I can eventually market to you or sell something to you later on. And it's a very interesting concept that that we're facing, because in this economy where YouTube exists because of the ability for creators to create content, advertisers to pay Google for placement and then have, essentially the creators get paid via the community or via just being relevant and being rewarded for content is a really, really interesting dynamic. And I know it's not new, I know it's not groundbreaking, but this whole thing of producing content for a year to 2 years, or producing 2, 3, 400 videos before you actually start getting traction, giving first, is a very, very interesting concept. And Gary Vee talks about jab, 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 right hook, where it's all about give, give, give first, and then asking for something, or getting paid. He wrote a book also called The Thank You Economy, where it's all about the giving. And this is something that I am obviously experimenting with, and it's something that I'm looking at. I've seen a lot of other creators do very successfully, pull this off very successfully with YouTube channels and Twitch channels and loads of other places like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. And it's something that, yes, we take the time to create value, we take the time to create the content, we take the time to help out other people. And what Dennis and I were talking about, and what one of the things that I was talking about in terms of this shift that I think I need to make, or the shift that he helped me understand, is that from a sales point of view, or from a results point of view, when there is a result, then there's this expectation that something is going to happen. And what Dennis said to me was quite profound, was that when he doesn't expect anything, when he doesn't care about what the outcome is, and Gary Vee also talks about this, then there's no need to hang up on the stress, hang up on the fact that we need to get a result. Because if you really think about it, like, we put out YouTube videos, the game is consistency. And so the result of each video, while we want videos to go well, we want our podcast to be listened by more people, we want our podcast to be listened by more people. The fact of the matter is that it's only going to gain traction once there's volume. And that's what these systems are all about, right? When we're using an email marketing system, or we're using an email marketing platform, maybe like ActiveCampaign or some other tool, ConvertKit maybe, is we have the ability to mass email, or email many people at the same time. It's an efficiency system. It's something that helps us create efficiencies so that we can plan engagements, so that we can plan content and prepare or nurture a relationship. We don't have to email people one by one anymore, because we can create an automation, we can create a system around developing that relationship. Of course, once people start interacting with us, and once they start communicating with us, and once they start commenting in the description, below the description, or commenting on, or emailing us and saying, hey, they got value, or whatever the comment is, that's when we can start getting a little bit deeper in the conversation. Maybe they buy a product, maybe they join a course, maybe they jump on a Zoom call with us, maybe they do a podcast interview. That then is a further development of that relationship. And so we have the ability to use these systems, to use these tools without expecting a result, by just being able to provide value, by being able to record ourselves, being able to write maybe blog posts, or even if it's tweets on Twitter or LinkedIn, or whatever the value is that we're going to give out to the world, to people that are on the outside, that maybe need the help, or maybe they need the advice, or maybe they need the education, or maybe they need the entertainment. That's what these systems give us, is the ability to communicate en masse. And I don't know if you've heard me say this on the podcast before, but in reality, the internet is just a giant telephone. And when we can start crafting our messages to reach more people, create content that is actually interesting for people, make, tell better stories, create some sort of a hook where we get people interested in what we're doing, that's when we can start getting traction. But those are skills that we need to develop. And so the only way to develop that is to actually put the time in. And later on, sure, maybe people would actually come to us and reward us. And so this is what's referred to as momentum. The word momentum by definition means that when you start pushing something, if I can use an example, when you start pushing something that's really heavy and really big, it starts off really, really slowly. We can all relate to maybe when we need to jumpstart a car and we need to, push the car along. So maybe the battery died or whatever the case may be. And so we need to start the car to get the engine turning again. The first couple of seconds of actually pushing that vehicle is difficult. It's hard. But once we start getting momentum, then the car starts picking up speed a little bit faster. And so that's what content does for us online. That's what these relationships do for us, even in real life. Not to say that online is not real life. Online is real life. It's just a different medium. It's just through a different device. So in the past, we used to call each other frequently. We didn't have smartphone devices. We didn't have all of this technology around us. We had different forms of technology, which was more manual, which was more one-to-one. And so the internet allowed us to start communicating to more than one person at a time, with the hopes of, one, being able to sell more products. So that's what majority of people are trying to do. But two, then this other sort of byproduct of communication happened where, hey, we can actually help people at scale. And if you really, really, really think about it, books are a form of that, a form of value. Because in the past, before the internet, before any of this stuff, when authors published books and were able to get those books to readers, and people bought those books, and they were publicized, and they were available to people, and they were published in many countries, and published in many, and put on in bookshelves in lots of different bookshops. That's how authors were able to build credibility and actually build scale into their businesses. And so it still exists today. The only difference is now we have the internet, which is actually even more revolutionary, because now we can go to millions and millions of people. And yes, it takes time to write a book. Yes, it takes time to build up a YouTube channel. Yes, it takes time to build up an email list. But the years or months that we take creating those assets and building that skill and creating those relationships and starting to gain the traction that we need is the skill. It is the thing that I think all of us need to learn, because in the future, or even in the now, this is the currency of the day. Attention, relevancy, consistency, and being able to be authentic. I would say those are the four things that really makes or helps people stand out from the ordinary person who's just trying to pitch their product all the time. And if you look at Twitter is a prime example of that. If you search any keyword on Twitter, there is probably 80% of people that are just trying to pitch, hey, here's my YouTube video, or hey, here's my product, or hey, pay me for this XYZ thing. I made this thing for you because I want something back. The conversations that are actually meaningful, that are actually valuable, that are actually worth getting into start off of people who are giving for the sake of giving, for writing things because they just love the art of writing, for developing conversations, for developing relationships. And again, this is something that I'm still learning to do. And if you're listening at this point of the podcast, I thank you, because this is a hard skill. And the podcast format, especially when recording alone, has a very different dynamic to when you're having a conversation with somebody. And so if you're listening to this podcast and you're taking in what I'm saying, it's been a tough journey for me, because coming from that sort of take experience of growing up, and I'm 40 now, living in Thailand, trying to break into the US market. I've been working with US clients for ages, but in terms of content, in terms of being able to put my voice out there, in terms of building a name for myself, yeah, it's been difficult. And 200 plus videos on my YouTube channel, and I'm still trying to gain traction on the other YouTube channel, right? This is the Marketing Stack Podcast YouTube channel. And on the other channel, my main channel, Burhan Patel, 200 odd videos up there. And it's been a grind. One, because I'm just trying to figure out who the heck I am. And two, because, well, when you grow up in this whole sales environment, and everything is about sales and everything is about profit, and now you come into an online space and you start working on a business, a digital business, a digital agency. Yes, there are a lot of clients out there who just want sales. There are a lot of clients who just want the results. They just want the conversions. And I've worked with those clients, and some of them have been very successful. Some of them have not been. And for me, at this point in my life, I think I'm working more on the long game. I'm working more on sort of how can we create value in the world? How can we develop a long-term relationship where the result is the relationship, the result is the pursuit? Or in Dennis's words, we don't care about the result. We care about how we can reach people, how we can help people, how we can change their lives. And this is what I'm moving more into. And the 200 videos that I have on my YouTube channel are all about sort of helping out. Some of them are tutorials, some of them are, explanatory or tips type of videos. And I think it's interesting because when we're creating content, we're trying to help people out. Yes, we've got to try to create attention. We've got to try to hold people's attention. We've got to make things interesting. It's a hard thing to do. It is a very difficult thing to do. And if you're listening to the podcast, I'm just being open about the fact that, well, my background has been mostly brought up in the sales environment, and moving online and, been working online for the last 7 years. It's a skill that I'm still working on. It's a skill that I'm still developing. This whole concept of putting out a video, not getting any leads from it, not getting much comments from it, not like the pursuit of success in this era or this space is very different. And newer people, younger people have the luxury, or have the actual, I would say they have the pleasure, they're lucky in the sense that, they don't come from the whole sales background, or when they're being sold to, it's very sensitive for them. And it is sensitive for me too. I don't like to be sold to either. But being able to earn a living and build a life on less pitch and less sales has been challenging. I would say that I'm doing fairly well. I'm doing quite well. I'm on par to do 6 figures this year still, but it has been a struggle. It has been interesting, just the psychology of how do you actually put out value for a year to 2 years, knowing that there might not be any reward or any result. And so I implore you to experiment. I implore you to play around with different formats. I implore you to read a lot of books to figure out how to actually storytell, how to actually craft a good hook, craft a good headline, how to actually get people interested, how to get sort of good design on thumbnails and, websites and posts, and how to actually get attention in that way, because that's the currency. That's the thing that's going to help us elevate our authority. And if you really think about it, books sell because of good titles, because of good covers as well, and then because of good testimonials. You get good reviews by people, by publishers, by friends, family, by lots of reviews on Amazon or wherever you're publishing. That's what actually helps and generates interest. And so you'll see, obviously you would have seen, when people publish books, they go on the podcast circuit or they get interviewed on YouTube channels, and that's their publicity. That's they putting their opinion out, and a lot of times it's some of the content from the book that they're giving inside of those interviews, because that's what they want people to actually see more or learn more or dig into the topic a little bit deeper. And so, when we're thinking about publishing content, we've got to think of the long game. We've got to brand rather than sell, meaning build a base first, build the foundation, and in Dennis's words, build the scaffolding so that you can actually create the thing that you need to create or that you're trying to create. If you don't know what you're trying to create, then that's a whole different conversation. That comes down to, what are you interested in, what are you passionate about, and I could make another episode about that. But for this particular episode, I wanted to share those golden nuggets and basically just have a recording for myself, and hopefully this helps you as well, because this shift in how do we give first without necessarily monetizing is an important concept. And I know a lot of my content on my YouTube channel, on Burhan Patel YouTube channel, talks about monetization, and it talks about how to grow your business. I think that the way to grow your business is to grow your relationships first, is to build those connections, to be the connector, so that we can actually invest the time, invest in the education that we need, and the conversations we need to have into creating that growth and creating that momentum. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening. And if you're listening to this on YouTube or you're watching me on YouTube, then definitely hit the like button, subscribe. And if you like the other podcast episodes, you can check out the playlist over here where the other guests have been interviewed and the other conversations have been uploaded. So with that being said, thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one. Happy trails.